Hello guys, good day. Welcome to JP's Bake and Craft Academy. This is an online platform where we teach all things sugar, all things edible. My name is Ibekwe John Paul of JP House of Cakes and Pastries. I'd like to thank you for signing up for my sugar flour class, and I assure you that this class will be as simplified and as much detailed as possible. However, in this class, I'll be teaching you how to make sugar flour frangipani, also known as plumeria. I'll be teaching you how to make the boards, closed boards, the semi-open boards, and also the fully blowed blossom. So here is the flour I have here in my heart. That is a sugar flour frangipani. Here is the semi-open board. This is the closed board, and this is the fully bloomed blossoms. So in making this closed board, I work with florist wire 26. Also in making the semi-open board, I'll be working with florist wire 24. Then for the fully bloomed blossoms, I will be working with florist wire 28 for each of the 5 petals. Then for the leaves, I will be working with florist wire 24. So let's start off immediately. So now I'll show you how I made the closed board, which is this over here. So in making that, I'll be working with florist wire 26, a little bit of paste. Now this is my florist wire. I cut it already into 3, but to save your wire you can cut it into 4, but I feel it's more convenient for me to cut it into 3. Now you don't need much paste for this, you just need a little bit of a paste. Then make a little cone, teardrop shaped. Pass the florist wire through the thin part of the cone, the pointed end. Make sure that the wire doesn't poke out through, but you can feel it with your thumb, but it shouldn't pass through. Now you work on the base, then point the tip. Remember, it was bulgy before, it was rounded, but now I've reshaped it to have a slender pointed tip. So this is it. Then after now, the next stage is to work with your pair of tweezers. You clip into 5 places. 1, clip from the very tip down halfway through. 1, that's 2 now. Then 3, 4, and 5 is very super easy to make, so there's no much stress there. Now once you've done this, if your hand is feeling a bit sticky, please apply a bit of cornstarch. Now I would hold it at the very base. Sorry, I need to come over the blue surface so you can have a clear view of what I'm doing. Now I will twist this end gently to give me that spiral look. So this is what it should look like at the end. Just try not to over twist, just gentle touch would be fine. So this is the first technique on doing the closed board. Now I will show you a second method. Still with a little bit of paste, with the same florist wire gauge 26. Now I'll be making a little bit of hook with my hands. If you can't, you can use your plier but the wire is not that hard, so I can easily make it with my bend it with my hand. So the same cone shape, pointed cone. Now pass it through the bulge and to make its way through the tip. Now the hook gets into the paste and hooks into the paste. Now I would walk the stem onto the wire to stick. Then I will stop. Then point the end gently. Then we're good to go. Now I come back with my tweezer to clip from the tip down halfway through, clip down halfway through, clip again. Remember that the clipping is just into 4 or 5 places. It can't be less than 4 and it can't be more than 5. So the clipping has to just be within 4 or 5 places. So once I'm done with the clipping, then we go over again to hold it at the base, then twist from just gradually, just to get the spiral movement. Now once I've achieved the twist, I'll blend the tail. Then after now, I usually extend the tail of the board, like as if it has a brick or a kind of a cut, a seam rather. So in doing that, I don't need much of a paste, just a very little paste, tiny little bit of paste. I place it onto the wire, then walk it onto the flourished wire to meet at the very end where the tail of the closed board ends. Now this technique, it's something that most of my students find it difficult to get, but once you master it, I believe there is no flower you would find it that difficult to make it. So now the trick is that the paste is onto the wire, then my hand is, the paste is in between my fingers. If you press it too hard, it won't have a smooth look. So you don't need to apply so much pressure. So this is what it should look like once you're done. So over to the next one, a little bit of paste, place it onto the wire, then walk it against the flourished wire to get to the end. Then they shouldn't be more than 1.5. So if there is excess, you just trim it off a little bit. Now the sizes of the closed boards shouldn't be similar. It shouldn't be that perfect. Some might be more slender than this, some might be a little bit bulgier. So don't try to make it to be that uniform. Otherwise, it's most likely going to lose its natural look. So that is it for the closed board. Now I'll be showing you how I achieved my semi-open board. Now these are the pre-made formers or cones that I made for the semi-open board. Now this is it over here. I made this one just some days ago. Now in doing this, for you to get this, now I believe it has to be precised. So because of the precision, I have to work with my digital scale, because you viewing it on the screen, you might make a mistake on the exact size that it should be. So I will turn on my scale. Once it's on 0, I add my paste. All I need is just 1 gram of paste. That's 1 gram over there. So I would make a little cone again, thin it out. That's good to go. Now, with my florist wire 24, cut it into 3, make a little hook at the end, make sure that the hook is not closed. I hope you can see. Just an open hook. So pass it through. Now the hook hooks into the paste. I would push it up a little bit while I work the base to stick onto the wire. So this is how you make the frame for the semi-open board. Now, going to the next stage, this cutter, which I will come to introduce to you later, is what you need to know now. Now, I'll place it. You can see the distance between the paste over here and the cutter. So that is what it should be. You shouldn't get too close or exactly. It should be slightly lower than this cutter. So that is it for now. So now I would want to introduce to you the exact cutter that I'm using for this flower. Now this is a round rose cutter and this is an Austin rose cutter. It's slender, narrower than the round rose cutter. So you guys, most of you will be familiar with this. So I won't be working with this at all. Now, this is the cutter I'll be working with. Now, you count from inside out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these other pair cutters, we won't be working with them at the moment. We set them aside and bring back this 2 cutter, 4th and the 5th cutter. Now remember what I told you about this cutter, that's the 4th cutter. It shouldn't, the frame or for the semi-closed board or semi-open board, it shouldn't be higher than it, or it shouldn't be of the same height. Rather, it should be slightly lower into the cutter. So I will leave this aside to dry while we work with the next one. In making it, I roll out a little bit of paste, and before working on your cell board, make sure it's properly wiped with the bit of shortening and the paper napkin. Same for your cell rolling pin. Now I'll roll out my paste. The paste shouldn't be too thin and it shouldn't be thick as well. So the paste is just fairly thin Now, this is what it should look like. So that's it over here now. After now, we would cut our paste with the cutter number 6. Now, the paste is good to go. This should be the thickness, or rather the thinness. I'll be working with the cutter number 5. I'll cut out 5 petals. But I like cutting out extra just in case of any damage in the process. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow, we have 2 extra petals. That's more than enough. So making sugar flower frangipani is super easy and so much fun to make. Now my petals are ready and good to go for the next stage. Over here is my rose petal veiner. You can see the pretty veins. There are lots of rose veiners, but this one would go just fine because the veins aren't too prominent and it's not too light as well. It's just, in between. So I dust my mold with a bit of cornstarch. And vein my petals one after the other. Please, in case you don't have this veiner, you can still make your sugar flower frangipani. The only difference is that the veins wouldn't be there. Just for example, if you don't have a veiner, what you just do now is to press this veiner over the surface so that it will thin out the edges for you and flatten the paste a little bit further. But for those that have it, or with any other kind of rose veiner, it will do just fine. So when you position your petals, please make sure that it fits into the center of the veiner. You don't just shift it by the side and vein, no. The veins wouldn't be natural. So you have to place it properly into the veiners to sit in properly. So I'm over to the last petal. Now my petals are ready. Remember, we have more petals than we need. We made extra just in case of any damage of any sort. Now the next stage, here is our egg white and a detailing brush for application of egg white. Before we get to the next stage, I would like to show you something. I would have done it over here, but the paste is white, so I need to use a blue foam part so you can easily see whatever thing I'm doing. So a bit of cornstarch on the foam part and on your petal. Now this is the ball tool I'll be working with. It's more like a medium size, not too big and not too small as well. Now pay good attention to what I'm doing now. Now you ball your petals from the very tip inward. So this is what it should look like, each of those petals. So I need to do this to 5 of the petals that I have here. Always remember to apply some cornstarch and try not to apply so much pressure, otherwise it would become too curvy. So the steps are very simple and easy to remember. Just from the tip inward, from the tip inward. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need one more petal to go. So that's it. So after now, the next stage is to apply a little bit of egg white to the left hand side. So this is the left and this is the right. So we'll be applying a little bit of egg white at the very end of the left hand side of the petals. So the egg white keeps on going on the left hand side of the petal, one at a time. So now we're good to go. The first petal onto the former. So you can see from where I attached the petal, just the angle that has the egg white to the very end of the cone. I will tuck the next petal into the already made petal sitting there. Make sure always that they are of the same height. These two so this is the second petal. The third, the fourth petal, and the fifth petal. Now you can see the flow at the base. You can see at this stage I would hold it at the very end down here while I twist the tip. It's too open, so my aim while twisting is to point the tip gently by spinning it round just like this. I'm closing up the tip just like this. It's a bit sticky, so apply a bit of cornstarch. So I'm pinching the tip while I'm spinning the whole stuff around. So once I've achieved what I want, you can see I can now add more pressure to the base just to secure it properly. Then for the very tip, I will apply a little bit of egg white, very little, not much, very little at the very tip, just little, just to secure the now the fifth petal. Now we are good to go. So now I will just try to stick the base to bond properly to have a firm grip at the base. Now you can see what it looks like. Holding the base, I would twist the tip. The aim now is just to get a pointed tip just like this one. So I will just hold it at the base, spin the tip, aiming to get it pointed, closing it up with this hand. So you can see it's already forming on its own. You can see it's already forming on its own. So once I've gotten that pointed tip, I would quickly apply a little bit of egg white, just a very little towards the end where the whole petal meets, just to seal the tips, that's all. Oops, sorry. So this is it. Then I'll now finally work on the end. Add more pressure to bond, to secure the base. A bit of cornstarch. So this is it. So after now, I would add a little bit of paste at the base to add extra length to the stem. Just the same way we did it. We did for the closed boards. So you can see. So you can set this one aside over here to get dried. So now we're done with the closed board, the semi-open board, and we're about to move over to the main fully bloomed petals of the frangipani. Now in making the petals, first of all, I'm working with a paste. I try to get a little bit of paste, make a sausage out of it. Then with my cell pin over the non-stick board, I thin out both ends to have a center ridge. So I will keep on thinning it out till I have a very narrow ridge at the center. So whenever you are doing this, you have to consider the fact what gauge of wire will be passing through this. So if it's too thick, you would know, and if it's too thin, you would know. So the trick is just, I need something that my florist wire 28 can comfortably pass in through without poking out. And this technique helps you to have a thinner outer petal while the center ridge would cover up the florist wire without being seen, and still your petals will still be thin. So now from the ridge, I thinned out one of the ends, and the end that I thinned out would be the lip of the petal. That's, look at it, the end that was thinned out. So you can see. The ridge now would come halfway through the cutter. So when you want to place your cutter, make sure that the ridge is centered properly, streamlined. Then you cut. You can see that the ridge stopped half through the petal. With your florist wire 28, cut into 3. I like making my flowers with white florist wires so that it doesn't get to be seen through the pest. Now you can see this one, you can find the green florist wire, but if I had used white, it wouldn't have been that visible. So I passed my florist wire through the center ridge that I've already created for my petal. Stop exactly halfway through. Over my cell pad, a bit of cornstarch. Just a little. Now with my ball tool, I try to thin out the end. With my ball tool, half of the ball tool inside, half outside. I'm not frilling, like I'm just pressing, adding pressure to the edges to thin out the edges for me. That's all I need. Then once I'm done with that, that brings us back to our veinner. Centralize your petal into the veinner and add a little bit of pressure. Then pop out. Because the veinner is a bit curvy, you can see the petal. The wire is slightly curved upwards. I don't know if you can see from that angle, but better. So now I would hold the florist wire at this end. Now lift my petal upward, so we have a flat wire. Once I'm done with that, I'll flip it back up, just the way it came out of the veinner. Remember, it came out like this. So that same side that came out of the veinner is the same part that will be facing me. Now, the left hand side, I just try to push it inwards, to coil it inwards with my finger. You can see, I call it inward. You can see ahead the back view now, you can see through what I did. This is what it was like. Then I pushed the sides, the edges halfway through. So once I've achieved this now, we'll move over to the next stage. With our cell pad, apply cornstarch. This is the original state of a petal. I will flip it back. And with my ball tool, the same ball tool, this is the angle that you hold your florist wire. Just a lift. Then with my ball tool, I'll push inwards, inwards, inwards gradually, adding pressure slightly to cup the petal. You can see that the petal has already cupped on its own while pushing the ball tool from the very tip of the petal halfway through inside the petal. So once I'm done, it comes out cupped. You can see. You can see the cups. Now, I'll show you how I dry my frangipani flower petals. Here are some petals I made these back, resting over this paper former. So this paper ring, I got it from my finished cling film. So you can get yours if you have any film, your cling film, finished cling film, the center paper that holds the bond of cling film. That's what I use in drying my petals. So I'll remove this one, they're already dried. Now this is the one I just made now. I'll place it onto this to dry out. So this is the position that is going to have once you are done. So I have an empty egg crate, half egg crate, that helps me to balance the former so it doesn't move to and fro. So it gives it a steady movement. Now this is it. This is what it should look like. So I'll quickly do this technique again. Pushing out the both ends to make a center ridge where my florist wire would pass through. So now I will thin out one end. Then with my my petal cutter, place it at the center of the ridge to make sure that half of the ridge is halfway the center of a cutter. Then I can as well do at this end, thin out this part and cut. So that way we make a duplicate petal out of one roll of paste. Then the florist wire 18 goes in again. Halfway into the petal. ball the end of the petal just to thin it down. Then comes our veiner, bit of cornstarch. Centralize your petal, then vein. Remember what I said, you hold this and lift it up to have a flat surface. Then the next stage is to coil the left hand side halfway through inwards, slightly curved. This is what the original petal looks like. Then after curving the left hand side, this is what it should look like. Over our foam part with our ball tool, you ball from the very end of the tip inwards, from just like this. You can see I started from the center, moved towards the left inwards, then towards the right inwards. I've already gotten what I wanted, so this is it. Then over to the former again. You can see. So this is how I make my petals. Now we'll come to the coupling of the petal and adding some more few details to it. Over here is the already coupled petal. And after that, I will show you the same method that we used in adding extending the tail. We have to repeat the same thing over here. So I will show you how to couple your frangipani petals. So before we start coupling our frangipani petals, I want to show you a trick that I use in cutting my florist tip. Because there are some flowers you might be making or you are making that doesn't require bulky stems. So you have to reduce the thickness of your florist tip so that whatever thing you are making wouldn't be that bulky. So just cut a strip of a florist tip, and once you cut it out, do not stretch it, because once you stretch, it releases its gum and folding it will be very much difficult for you. So once you cut it up, not too long but to a reasonable length, you fold it into two, then fold it again and again and again. So these are. So there are some flowers that I will making that requires tiny details. I cut it into 4. Then there are some that I cut into 3. Then for this one, we'll just be cutting it into 2. If the florist tip was too bulky, you will find it difficult to get a clean cut. So now that I'm done, I would release the tape. Then I can now stretch it. So this is how I slice my florist tape. If you don't have a tape shredder, this is an alternative for you. I hope you find it helpful. So now, over here I'll bring out my pre-made dried petals. So I'll start to couple up the first, the second. I'm just trying to go round. This is what I'm trying to achieve. To get that spiral fan-like movement. So how many petals? 1, 2, 3, 4. I need one more petal. Oops. Sorry. So I have 5 petals here. I would start the arrangement. So you can see that it's as easy as you can imagine. So once I've achieved the spacing, I think I like this, I can now bind them up with my florist tip. So this is what it should look like at the base, the back. You can see the movement of the petals. This is what it should look like. So in making this flower, I suggest you should work with white florist wires. So with my florist tape, I place it at the very base and wrap it 1 for firm grip, then 2. Then after now, I will now angle my hand. Before it was like this. Now I would angle it downwards. So as I'm wrapping it up, it's covering, and that way you would have a very, very firm and tight coupled flower. Now I'll do my final arrangement to adjust the petals. I think that's good now. So we have 2 similar flowers. So that's it for the arrangement. So now that I'm done with that, would add extra detail to the stem, a little bit of paste, so there are different ways of making sugar frangipani, and there are different cutters and veiners that definitely will give you different results. So this is the one I think that it's quite affordable to make because you wouldn't spend much. There are expensive veiners and cutters on the market, but this one is very affordable and easy. So now that is it. We are good to go. So after that, I'll just do a little bit of touch up to pull up the petals a bit, and that's it. So the next thing to do now is the leaves. So in making the leaf, I'll be working with a light green paste. I don't like working with the deeper shade of green. The light shade of green helps me to create contrast on my leaves whenever I want to. Because when the paste is deep, there are some contrast that you would want to achieve that you can't. But when it's lighter, you can play around that. So the same method I used for the petals, that's the same method I'm using for my leaves. I'll thin out the edges, the both ends thinned out, having a central ridge. The leaf shouldn't be too thin because it's a flashy one. So this should be the tip of the leaves. So this is a quarter that I'm using for my leaf, the frangipani leaf. It comes in different sets. I think this is a small. It has a medium and a large size. But for this class, I'll just be using this. And for my cake decorations, I don't really like working with extra large leaves. Although it comes out beautiful, but for me personally. Now, the central ridge comes in slightly above half of the leaf. So you can see where the ridge ended. It's a bit higher than half through the petal, or through the leaf rather. So I'm working with Florist wire 24. Already cut out Florist wire 24, cut into 3. Now pass the wire through the ridge. And stop where the ridge ends. Then with our frangipani veiner, frangipani leaf veiner, apply a little bit of cornstarch, which prevents your leaf from getting stuck into the mold. Now you can see that the veiner is a bit curved. So in placing the leaf or the green paste, it wouldn't really come out nice. So what I do, I bend it to come with the same movement with the leaf. When you want to place the leaf paste into your mold, the ridge comes into this veiner with the heavy dent or depth. You can see. So the ridge comes into that area. So now I'll be bending my paste with the flower, with the florist wire, so that it fits into the veiner. You can see the movement now. It's a bit curvy. Push in the paste into the veiner. This prevents your paste from getting torn. let it sit comfortably into the mold. Then before you can now press it down. So you can see those beautiful veins. Now I'm lifting it from the back. So this is what it should look like. So in drying out the leaves, just use your foam former. Just try to give it some little movement. That's all. So now, coming back to the dusting, over here, I'll be working with my cupcake casing. I don't like working with paper napkins because they eat up my colors, but when I work with my paper cupcake or any other surface or foil, the leftover colors I pack them back into my color casing. But once I dust with paper napkin, I can't bring out the colors of it. So just gentle application of dust, apply in layers. And for my flower, before I start the dusting, I have this particular brush that I use in removing residue, cornstarch residue. So I try to remove any excess cornstarch on the petals. Then with a little bit of paper napkin or tissue paper, hold your flower at the base so as to avoid your hand impression, and the temperature from your hand can begin to melt, and sometimes it gives it a very stained or dirty look. So to avoid that, I work with my paper napkin or tissue. So a little bit of yellow dust, just gradually. As I'm applying, I'm pushing the brush upwards, like I'm coming out towards the outer petal, but not out, but just halfway through. Just gradually lift up my brush. Just a gentle movement. You don't try to be in a hurry by packing the whole dust over your flower. You just take it in beats. If it's not as bright as you want it to, then dab a little bit more and layer it gradually. It's very difficult to reduce the colors once applied, so you try as much as possible not to take so much. You can make any corrections at that point than trying to reduce the color which is already on your petal. For me, I don't like it too heavy. It will be too shouty and end up not being realistic. So remember that we're trying to overlay the colors. So now I'm done with this. The next color that will be coming in here will be my orange. So these two colors coming very nice on my frangipani. The yellow, sunflower yellow, provides a foundation for the orange so that the orange fits outward and inward into the blossom. So you can't really tell whether it's orange or kind of yellow, but it's more of a marigold kind of stuff. So the same pattern I used for the sunflower yellow, that's the same method and application that I'll be using for my orange dust. So at the end of the day, it gives the very lovely tone and natural appeal. So you can see how realistic it's already coming out to be. So I'm done with that. Just blend it outward at this stage. No more picking of colors. Just with your dry brush, try to lift up the colors to fade into the white. So you can't really tell where it started from and where it ends. Just let it flow. That's just the beauty. So after that now, I will move over behind just the same pattern that I used. Start off with the yellow dust at the stem, just like that, gradually. Let it flow into the back petal, blend it inwards. If you don't blend it, the color will look so stiff, like you can see the line where it started and where it ends, which is not that good. So let it blend. A little of yellow. Now I'll take my orange, just a little, to intensify the color a little bit. Now the color goes uniformly on the stem, just that it's more intense at the lower part of the petal. So this is it. So once I'm done with this now, I would apply a little bit of moss green, just a little. Towards the end. So this part is connected to the frangipani stems, which is not part of the flower. So we need to add some depth towards that area. So that's it. So once I'm done with this now, I'll use my fan brush, just take a little bit of white luster, a little, just a little, remove the excess, then brush over the petals gently, just gently. That way, it gives it more realistic look and make the petals look so soft and delicate. So because the petals are wired, you can always adjust the petals. So this is what it should look like once you're done. From nothing to something. Now, I will show you the next. A bit of orange again. Now we're going back to the back of a petal, starting off with the yellow dust. Okay. Then comes the orange. Then a bit of moss green at the base. We are done with this. So we have to now the same thing goes on to the semi open board and for the closed board as well. A little bit of yellow, just like that, just gradually, not too much. Then I lift it up almost halfway through. That's the yellows. Here's the same as this. Then Now over to the orange dust. Then after this comes the moss green at the base a little bit, just as others. So for more intense look, I work with the back of the brush. Like, I don't work with the tip now, I work with the back. So it would help me apply a deeper shade or to add more depth of the green to make it more visible. So that's it. So after now, we'll move over to our leaves. Here are some. So now we are getting over to our leaves, and here are some of the leaves I made earlier, already dried. So for the leaves, we'll be working with a flat brush for better application of color. So for the leaves now, I'm starting off with my moss green. Just the light coat. Then comes the next shade of green, cut kiwi. The apple green comes next. So now I'm working with the side of a brush. I'm not working with a tip. The side helps me to scrub the paste, to scrub the dust over the surface of my lips. And with the help of the glue in the petal dust, it sticks. So this particular technique of color application is not what I use all the time, but for this particular leaf, it gives me more of what I want. Sometimes I could combine the whole colors in different proportions or amounts and just apply over the leaf just once. But this method works just fine for me. So I'll finish off with fern, just a bit of fern. Fern green comes last. Remember what I said? I'm working with the side of the brush, not the tip. I'm working with the sides. It helps the dust to stick comfortably. Finish off with fern petal dust. These colors are all edible, and you can get them in any craft stores. So we're done with that. So after now, I will show you how I glaze. So now this is the next stage for dusting. We are done with the dusting rather. So the next stage is the application of glaze. But in this class, I'll show you how I glaze my lips. But before I do, I usually steam my flowers, steam my lips. Once the colors have set and dried, I will now apply the glaze. But if I'm to be using sprayable glaze, I wouldn't bother steaming the lips. I will just go ahead with the spray. The reason being that spray holds the color, but normal glazing with brush washes off the color. It would have an even blend of color. So to avoid that, I would be making use of steaming to hold the colors first before I can apply the glaze. So now our steamer is almost ready. The steam is already coming out. Oh no, there's the steam over there. So try not to bring your leaf or petal too close to the steam. So the steam would help the color to set onto the leaf, giving it a very natural appearance. And once we are done steaming, place it over or stand it over a styrofoam to dry out. So the same thing goes for the rest of the leaves. Steam, steam, and steam. So now the question is, how do you know when it's time, or when you've had enough steam on your leaf or flower? The appearance, when it begins to look somehow glossy, shiny, then you know that the steam is enough. You can come back again to steam for the second time, but you have to allow that one to get dried before going the second round. That's also another way to add sheen to your flowers without, or leaves, without the use of confectioner's glaze. So for my leaves, I don't really bother dusting the back, because I would like to save my colors. But most times, if I want to dust, if I may, I work with a bit of moss green and cornstarch, so it doesn't get too dark. It just gives me a bit of a contrast from the front leaf color to that of the back, if I must, but I don't. Remember that the paste is already pale, not that deep, so that color gives the very nice tone or contrast. So I'm done with the leaves. We'll come back to it once it's dried. While we wait for the leaves to get dried, we'll couple up our closed board and semi-open board. So I'm just trying to add extra length of tape to cover up the wire, to add some bulkiness to the wire. So these were the ones that we just dusted. So I like attaching them maybe in trees or two or just one, as the one over here. So I would cover up the green wire, the green tip. We need a nice contrast. Then these two comes together. So one should be slightly higher than the other. I'll tip it up together. So you can see what it looks like. And this one's comes somewhere in between. Now wrap it up again. Then the next to go would be the semi-open board. So we can choose to add one or two depending on how full you want your spray to look. Now this florist wire, I think I cut it into 3, so you can see the reason why I was like into 4. So if I had cut it into 3, I wouldn't have had any need to add extra length of tape to it, so it's not long enough. I'll be adding extra florist wire to it. I just want to make it longer. I'm using 24 gauge wire for this. I can decide to keep it over here. I don't like mixing the boards, on different angles. I just like them coming out on one particular angle. So I think I'm okay with this. I need a little bit more. If I don't think I have any closed boards left. Okay, I still do have, but they're not yet dusted. I'll just make do with this. So I just added extra length of florist wire to this remaining semi-open board. So I'll just fix it maybe somewhere here. Just to create the more not bad. So over to the flower vase. So let's check on our leaves and see if they're good to go. So now I think our leaves are almost set for glazing. But before then, I need to build up the stem with my florist tape. The florist tape first. So after now comes stripe of paper napkin. This is a paper napkin that I cut into stripes. The same way I attach it onto the so this is how I build the stems of my flowers that has a thick branch or stem. So florist tip, paper napkin, then I finish up again with florist tape. So the essence of a florist tape first is to help the paper napkin stick. So this is it. So after now with my brush, and I'll bring the mixture of the greens that I have in my palette over here. I'll now use it to dust on the stem. This is the reason why I like working with white florist tip. With the white florist tip, I can always change it to any shade of color that I want it to have. And to make it fast, I usually, most times, just with my hand, wrap it over with a green. It makes it fast and sticks better. So this is it. And the same thing goes for this. So sometimes we need to get things messy to achieve what we want. So that's it. Look at the stem, looking so natural, looking so lovely. So I'll show you how I glaze Ben. This is my confectioner's glaze. It's not much amounts of supply. So make sure that the surface you're working on is covered with a piece of paper napkin or anything. Now I dab, allow it to flow downwards. So you can see that the colors is not separating. If I'd never steamed the leaves, the color would have started slipping down and washing away. But because I steamed, we are not experiencing any of those reactions. Oops, oh my god, sorry. So I'm done with this. Over to the next one. You don't scrub, you just let it flow with the help of the brush. Just spread it out. So you can see how glossy, how fresh the leaves are popping like. So whenever you're working with your brush for confectioner's lace, please try to make sure you make do with a condemned brush, bad brush, because once you've used any brush, you have to dedicate it for that purpose because it gets stuck and gets dry and hard. So you don't work with your precious brush for this purpose. You don't need any expensive brush. If you have any expensive brush, make sure you don't use it for glazing. And immediately after glazing, please try to wipe it off and wash it off. Otherwise, it will become very hard and it will take you time to revive it back. So now we'll wait for the glaze to set, and once it sets, we'll couple up our spray. So now the next stage is the coupling stage. I couple them up in trees, one facing the other, and a bit lower. This is the first one, this is the second one. It came a bit lower. Actually, this is not the botanically arranged, or rather, this is not the way it appears botanically. The stalk for the leaves are usually too large and too big, so I had to figure it out the way it would still appear nice and still be appealing. So this is how I attach the first leaf. Then the second one comes in between, just like this. And it comes lower. Remember that this is higher than this and this is higher than this. So the third one comes lower than the remaining two, first set of two leaves. So this is how I do it. Then with my florist tip again, I bind it up. So once you're done, you can finish it up with your green mixture, the mixture of the 4 greens, the cut kiwi, musk green, apple green, and fen green. All the stem, just to blend things up for you. So this is it. We are done with the leaves now, so you can see how natural and lovely the leaf looks. So the next thing to do now is to attach the leaf to our little frangipani sprayer. I love attaching my leaves. Now I have to reposition them to face well towards this direction. I like them coming close to that board. Then with my florist tip again, I will secure the leaf. So here is the finished look of our sugar flower frangipani sprayer. can see the two of them. The glaze here has already dried. This one is still fresh. It's not yet dried. So I really like the outcome. Just a bit. So that brings us to the end of our frangipani class. So I would like to thank you for signing up for this class, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to call me, to send me messages. I would be so glad to entertain them. And if you are finding it difficult as to source your materials, cutters, veiners, anything concerning this class, please do not hesitate to let me know. And I'll be expecting to see you in my next coming class. Thank you very much.